Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation. As you always hear me say, I'm excited again about guests because we only have incredible guests on the show, and today is no different than every other interview. A really phenomenal conversation today, and I've been looking forward to this as I've reviewed my calendar throughout the week. I keep looking out ahead saying I can't wait for this interview with Brad. My guest today is Brad McLeod, retired Navy SEAL and founder of the SEAL Grinder PT on Facebook. You may have seen them, and on the internet. Really looking forward to the conversation today. Brad, before we jump in, give us a little bit of background. Who are you? What do you want our community to know about you?
As I was just telling you earlier, really, I'm a regular guy. I'm a dad, I'm a father, but I just decided to change my life and get out there and do some crazy things, have a big, gnarly goal. And that completely, changed my life in trying to try out for the Navy SEALs. That molded my early life and changed it dramatically. And so, yeah, that's just, something that I try to pass on to my family, my kids, and to athletes.
Yeah, I love that. It was interesting as I went back, and I've been following you for years now, and went back and read the about section on your webpage, and it was interesting that you kind of described yourself as an unathletic person before you went to SEALs. I'm curious. I think a lot of the guys that kind of choose that path were great athletes or something before. They already felt like they were elite within the pack they were part of, and then moved into the elite of the elite. And the way you describe this is, maybe I wasn't an elite beforehand, but I still went this path. I've been dying to know a little bit more about like that decision of, I'm just like a skateboarder, unathletic person, it sounds like, and still chose that. Walk me through that.
Yeah. I mean, if you had to pick, look at me right now. If you had to pick out, you had to line up which one of these guys is the Navy SEAL, I would be the last one in the list that you would pick. And, but what I did find out that when I was in the actual training itself, there's almost kind of like, there's like a couple of different avatars, different characters that are there, that are in Bud's training or in the SEAL training. And, there is definitely the Mark Divine, the Jocko, the 6'2", chiseled abs, looks the part through and through. And then you have this other guy over on the other spectrum that's like the underdog, kind of the not really the weakling, but kind of just sort of a little on the scrappy side, and just won't say no, just won't quit. And that's really that I found that in the Navy SEAL training, that's what they essentially, the instructors are looking for, is they want a candidate that will not quit ever, and you've read that book, Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell. That's a really good example of that playing out in his ability to never quit, and that he keeps going back to that training. And so, that's something that at 19 years old, I didn't know that I had that in me. And so I was really, fortunate to be able to have that, rite of passage, if you will, or really just having to, step up to the plate at an early age and be tested by fire. And so I just was really grateful to have, that experience, and that it just changed my life forever.
Yeah, I love that you outlined that, and I wrote it down here. The trying to find that. How do you find out if you have that, that lion inside of you that won't say no, won't quit, and no, but there's no way for someone to ever discover that about themselves unless they put themselves in a situation that gets them way, way, way outside of their comfort zone. Part of my personal mission vision statement says the most difficult tasks yield the most valuable lessons. So it's part of my daily affirmations to read that. The most difficult tasks yield the most valuable lessons. And honestly, it's in those moments when I feel like I physically can't go anymore, but decide to go some more, is that I learn the next level of who I am. And if I never let myself get to those stages, I would have never learned that about myself. So I love that you outlined that. I think more people need to get to that, go through that to find out, do I have the, I don't quit. I can get to the next level. So was there any specific times or experiences where you said you didn't discover that in you before going into buds and going down that path? Were there any specific moments where you're like, I got a decision to make? Is there more in the tank?
Yeah, I can tell you, there's two different versions of me. I guess there's multiple different versions of me, but the version before was, I was just drifting along. I had no compass. I loved to party. If partying was you got a grade for it, I would have been a 4.0 in high school. Unfortunately, I didn't do any sports in high school. I skateboarded. That was my athleticism. But I was just mediocre, and I was just average, just floating along. But there was something down inside of me that said that I know I can be better. This is not who I am. This is not the best version of myself. Or I know there is a better version of myself out there. So how do I find that? And so there was, I think that's in every young man and woman's, or young boy and girl's DNA, is that they have that inside them. They want to explore. They want to, we're all captivated by the astronaut going to the moon, or the we want to say, like, what if? We want to have big dreams, man. As a kid, I think we all had big dreams. I played with GI Joes, and I had all these ideas, but that, what I'm trying to describe is that I had this little small spark inside my gut, and I knew that it was not going to go away until I went out and tested myself. And so, that's, my uncle was in the Navy, my great aunt was in the Navy. And I'd read all the stories, about, the UDT and the frogmen and Normandy invasion and all of that. And that captivated me. I was like, whoa, what if? That was the what if. What if the GI Joes that I played with as a kid, I could go out there and do that myself, and I could test myself at the highest level. And so that was it, man. I just went all in. I was just 100% committed. I didn't have a contract going into the Navy. Back then, they didn't do contracts. So you had to go to the Navy. You had to go ahead and sign up for 6 years, and go through boot camp first and take your test at the end of boot camp. It wasn't like it is now. I know I'm talking. I know I sound like old guy, but it wasn't like these days where you get your contract before you go in. So you're like, hey, at least I know I'm going to Buds. I didn't know I was going to Buds. I just knew I had to get in the Navy to go to Buds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying my commitment level was super high, and I just I didn't burn my boats necessarily in that, but at a certain level I did. I was like 19. I left home. I went away. I was committed for 6 years, no matter what. I couldn't break that promise. And so, but that was it. That set me on a course, just massive trajectory, man. It was like a complete 180 of who I was at that moment, and then who I was getting ready to become.
Yeah. I love how you're articulating the story. Like it's really painting the picture for me. And there's a couple things you said that that I think are really applicable to like even myself. And I think where a lot of us are, you mentioned that, a lot of young men, young women have that in their DNA, that they know there's something more in them. And I'm no longer a young man with my gray hair at 43 years old. And I still feel like I've got that in me of like, even though there's parts of me that have accomplished so much more than I ever thought was possible, but then it just uncovers, it pulls off another layer of, okay, well, if that was possible, if I accomplished that and I thought that was impossible, but now I've accomplished that, what else is possible? I love that evolution of life of us achieving a little bit more than almost looking around like, wait a second, if I could do that, what else could I do? So like, as you were talking, the thing I wrote on my notes there is, I think we live in a world where a lot of us are good at dreaming and wanting things, particularly with social media, going from, well, what if I did that? What if that happened? And then I think the problem a lot of us have in the world right now is we have a hard time taking that dream and executing on it to go from what if to it actually is. And that's kind of what I wrote down there in my notes to kind of put some more thinking time in is, okay, well, we've gotten really good at a community to say, what if, but how do we get to it becomes a reality for us? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I was just talking about that last week, with someone else, is that, how do you get from that A to B? How did I get from that partying teenager to standing, or getting my trident, years later? So how did I get to that? And really the first part of that is just was simply to have that dream, but have a goal that it's a big gnarly goal, but it is attainable, right? And so like a good example would be like, for me, it would have been, say, I want to become a brain surgeon. Okay. That's probably not going to happen for me. Okay. Just the academics, all that, you do have a higher level of academics to get into buzz or whatever, but that was at the outer limits, but that it still was attainable. Right. So I think we need to be able to have the big dream, but it needs to be somewhat attainable, right? Or let's say, I'm going to play in the NBA, as basketball. Hey, I'm 5'7". It's just not going to be reality. So we want to have a dream. We want to dream big, but there has to be a little bit of a fraction of it in reality. Okay.
Yeah.
And so really from there, it became, reading, back then I didn't have, I didn't have a SEAL mentor, didn't want able to go work out with other SEALs, anything like that. So really it was just a research phase, putting that together of, I didn't know how to train, I know I'm an old guy, but hey, didn't even have the interweb, right? It wasn't like you type in, how do you train like a Navy SEAL? It was like, okay, I'm just going to, I trained in a bodybuilding gym. I kid you not. Hey, but it was badass. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, one side of the gym, guys are over there posing and doing all the reps. Other side of the gym, these guys are over here powerlifting and squatting heavy with really good technique. So in a way, it was actually, even though it was not the exact right place, I had to stumble forward and make some mistakes and at least try to get myself in the game. And so really that's where the accountability started, is that, you can have that big gnarly dream. Let's just say you have that big dream. There's a fraction of that that's doable, that can be done. And so we begin to put together our plan. We research, we go out, we get our feet wet, right? We fall forward there at the gym. I mean, I've always been scrawny, runt. Imagine the intimidation level when you're looking at, literally guys are in there like, they're jacked, and they're always big time in that gym. It was intimidating as hell. But I got with a buddy of mine, another scrawny buddy of mine. And before we even went to the gym, we went to his barn. We were lifting weights in his barn with like the old sand weights and stuff. I mean, it was, it was primitive. And, from there we began, it was that falling forward, but also it was that accountability. That's where I first learned that accountability, because my buddy would come up to the house, riding his truck, hey, come on, honk the horn. Hey, let's go. We're ready to go work out. And so from there, that accountability, I started seeing that, like, hey, if that was a swim buddy back before it was a swim buddy, and the term being from buds, and that you have, another teammate that everywhere you go with them. Everything you do, you swim with them, you dive with them, everything you do with them. That was my initial swim buddy. And so learning that accountability at that early age, I could have all the dreams in the world, right? I could have it all written out, a nice plan of how it needs to be done. But you have to go and physically get in the gym. You have to physically go and get in that book. And you have to do that hard work, chopping wood and hauling water. And that's something that you have to, that's something that you have to know and begin to love that grind of, even then when you don't want to do it and it's 5:30 in the morning, your buddy's out there honking the horn, boom, you're up, you're going. And so that accountability there is really, that was kind of the cement that helps, put those blocks together and start building it up, building up those layers. And so from there, then it was just, you got to be tested, right? You got to test yourself. And so, I can go lift all the weights in the world in the gym, and that's great. That helps me become healthy. That helped me maybe party a little bit less. So I was becoming healthier. I was building discipline. I was building accountability, and I said, yeah, I'm going to put this to test. What's the worst that can happen if I sign up for 6 years in the Navy and I don't make it through buds? What's the worst that can happen? Okay, well, I got 6 years. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to save my money for college or what have you. And so really the downside was not that bad, right? But at the same time, man, I was putting in the work. And I had an incredibly big why. And my why any day of the week, and I say this humbly, but it will stand up to your 6'2" chiseled warrior all day long. It's like, brother, you want to go to the surf zone, or you want to talk about pain? You want to ride this out? That's the one thing that I had. And so, I went to the big test there at Buds, and, right and left, man, every day guys are dropping. They're dropping like flies. And so earlier I talked about being intimidated when I went to the bodybuilding gym, when I literally weighed like 155 pounds. No, hey, I mean, I'm like 5'7.5" right now, I'm a little guy. And when we really talk about getting intimidated, standing there at Buds, and you got guys that are freaking just jacked, wrestlers, high school lettermen, high school quarterbacks, everything, man. And all these guys are ripped. All these guys shaved head. You're looking around, you're like, and you look at the instructors, every instructor there is like, ripped, chiseled, war veteran, guys coming out of Vietnam. So I was just overwhelmed. But here's the thing, man, that I learned is your 6'2" chiseled warrior, some of them made it, but not all of them did. And I was like, what's going on here? Hey, man, I thought that one guy, everybody thought he was over there doing push-ups on the side, even like, like we would have break for the chow. We were like, whoa, this guy, man, the guy ends up quitting like 3 weeks in, he got instructors were on him a little bit. He was kind of a showboat. They don't like showboat, right? They want the gray man. They want the guy who's just doing the work, right? And so in my little head, I'm thinking, how does the chisel warrior, not all of them make it? How is that happening? And that's when I started figuring out, hey, man, those guys that never had nobody in their face, they haven't had instructor this far off their face, call them every name in the book and making them hit the surf back to back. They may have had a little bit in football practice or whatever, but not like that, right? They had had water in their lungs, in football practice. And so I started looking, man, and I'm like, all I got to do is outlast. I just got to not quit. They can't beat you. They're not going to kill you. All right. What are they going to do? They're going to take away your birthday? You're just going to have to suffer. And I was like, okay. And hey, here's the thing, man. I'm a Florida guy, right? I still live in Florida right now. I don't like the cold. I'll tell you that right now. I don't like the cold. But if I got to go get in the cold, and it's a difference between me and whoever and outlasting, it's game over.
Yeah.
I'm in till I pass out. I don't care. And that's what I did at Buzz. I just said, boom, I don't care. Let's go. If that's the game inside the game, I play that game all day long. And so it gave me a lot of confidence all of a sudden. So I went from like intimidated as fuck. You can delete, beep that if you want. But honestly, man, I was like, whoa, I got him way over my head. To all of a sudden, I was like, oh, okay, we're going back to the surf again. I hate the cold. I don't care. Because I know I'm going to come back out on the other side. It may be ugly. I may be shivering. But I'm going to finish this thing out. And so I learned it's like, it don't matter how pretty it is, how pretty you look. You just finish that drill.
Man, there was
that game inside that game. It gave me a lot of confidence. I still got my ass beat every single day. I still wanted to quit a couple times a week. But there's a huge gap between thinking about quitting and walking up and ringing the bell. And so every time I think about quitting, I either, there's a lot of things I would do to not do that, but also my swim buddy would be, smack me around, hey, come on, man, you're in this, right? You got this. Yeah. And so that's where that accountability came back. I could never make it through Buds by myself, I mean, and you're not meant to make it by yourself. You're meant to submit at a certain level to be accountable and to be a part of a team. Conan doesn't make it through Buds. They don't want Conan.
Yeah.
They want the gray man. They want the guy who's going to be there for a swim buddy and never quit. Okay, I can do that. Sign me up right there. Sign me up.
Yeah. Man, there were some incredible nuggets in that whole story walking through that. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, a couple things that I think were really cool that you outlined that I think are so relevant for, a lot of our community, our entrepreneurs, people that are actually being faced with some adversity and trials economically within their business that they really haven't had to face over the last several years. And for a lot of them, it's the first time. And there's some things that you talked about that I think are really relevant. So I want to point out a couple of them. Number one is, I love how you multiple times equated that to the game within the game, right? It's if we look at the whole big picture, we feel like every little bad thing that happens to us kills the long term. It kills the bigger picture. When really, if we can just gamify these little pieces, if I can just make it through this evolution, or if I could just make it to the end of the day. What kind of pup you got there?
Yeah, that's my sheepdog. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Out there. Hang on. Let me go back. I'll get him in.
Yeah, you're totally good.
Yeah, sorry about that. Oh man, sorry.
Like a guard dog. Yeah, but that idea of that game within the game of just saying like, all right, well, I don't have to win everything. I just got to win this little piece, and all these little wins will stack up to get me across the finish line. The other thing you said that I think is brilliant is when you were comparing yourself against these other 6'2" chiseled warriors, and you said I'd stack my Y up against their 6'2" stature any given day. And I think a lot of us are looking at what's going on in the world, and we're feeling like we're going up against this warrior that's twice our size, twice our ability, but is our why, the reason we're doing it, like our commitment to doing it, it will stack that up against any warrior. And if you haven't discovered what your why is and why you're doing things, then you are at a disadvantage even stacking up against the 6'2" foot warrior. But if we get clarity on what's important to us and we're committed to win no matter what, and can stack up these little wins within the bigger win, like we should be able to plow through any adversity that's in front of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was just, I didn't know the term, and I didn't even think about it in that way, at 19 years old, but it was just, we're compartmentalizing all these little events that were happening during buds, right? And so, the biggest thing was we wanted to make it, we'd say chow to chow, right? We want to go from lunch to dinner. I want to go from dinner to mid-rats. I want to go from mid-rats, mid-rations at 12 at night. They fed you. We got fed 4 times a day in Hell Week. And so I want to go to breakfast again. So I know that's my thing. I want to get to chow hall, chow to chow. And so from there, then it just had to break, everything down into, there were times, man, where it was just like only, one more step. Can I just take one more step? And so, learning that compartmentalization, and even having my swim buddy chirping in my ears, like chow to chow, buddy, chow to chow, baby. That's all that matters. Chow to chow. We're running with a boat on our head, That's the kind of things that are going on, the dialogue that's going on that's helping you, again, with that accountability. And so, piecing that all together, all these little bits, they talk about eating an elephant. How do you do it? You just do it one bite at a time. Because when you look at that long term and you're in the middle of Hell Week and you're thinking of like, oh my God, I got to do this, whatever, 2-3 more days, you're going to get so overwhelmed that you're just, I mean, you could quit, people quit from that. They just like, I can't do this another day or 2 or 3 or whatever. But when I just think about, okay, one more step, or I'm just, going to chow hall, chow to chow, then, breaking it down, that made so much more sense. And it wasn't like the instructors over there on the side, like, okay, everybody, we're going to learn today about compartmentalization. You know what I'm saying? Like, there ain't nobody teaching you that stuff. You're just learning it by fire.
Yeah.
And luckily, my swim buddy, man, he was like Tony Robbins over there, man. He's like, I can tell you stories, man. He's like whispering in my ear all this stuff, like, hey, do this, do that. And he had actually worked as a diver before. He was a little bit older than me, so he had a couple years of experience. Like two. He's like maybe 2 years older, but he'd worked on an oil rig. He had been a diver. He'd been around. And so, he brought a lot of real world wisdom to, it was good to have a 21-year-old swim buddy with a 19-year-old going through 2 years during that age span. And especially if you've been out in the real world, it can really help you. And so, I was just really fortunate to, lock in quickly, have a great swim buddy, and again, help propel me forward and learn all those life lessons right there.
That's awesome. I love that story. So you get through BUD/S. How long were you in the Navy?
In the Navy for 6 years.
6 years.
So four that were serving at SEAL Team 4 at Little Creek, Virginia. And so, I was back. It was back during the Reagan years, the Cold War. And so just a lot of Cold War training and tactics. And, it's actually on, I don't know if you know the whole story, but I got kicked out of BUD/S the first time. I don't know if you read that story. I got, and so I was actually on a ship for a year too. And so, even then, when we were on the ship, was it yesterday, the Russian fighter jet shot down an American drone or whatever.
Yeah.
We were, doing Cold War stuff back in the day, and would get, on the ship or what have you, and have, Russian MiG fighter jet, off the coast of Vietnam coming by, taking, nothing that ever made the news, but it was the kind of stuff, that was going on back then during the Cold War. And so
crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now I got to hear the story. So you got kicked out of BUD/S the first time. Did you go, did you go through Hell Week twice then? Or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You want to talk about life lessons, man. I'll keep it short. But it's probably, the biggest life lesson I ever learned in my life. Definitely. So I get all the way through second phase. I've already made it through Hell Week. I'm in dive phase. Passed all the tests that I needed to there, diving, the whole ditch and don, when they take your mask off and all that stuff, made it through that. I'm taking a dive test. It's a dive physics test. I've never been good at math. If it was a partying test, I would have scored again. I would have had an A+. Dive physics kicked my ass. And I failed it twice. And, no excuses, but, I would usually take my tests, or sometimes I would take them standing up. I would put a piece of paper on the wall. And a lot of times they would make you go out to the surf and get in the surf before you came and took the test. I'm taking the test, writing on the wall, and my sleeves rolled up so I don't get the paper wet, And so that gives you an idea where, this mental state you're in when you take a test at BUD/S. The other thing was I didn't want to sit down because I knew I was going to fall asleep. They could put the test in front of me and I'd be like, oh God. I'd be over drooling, and I'd end up going back to, instructor send me to the surf. So I'd take a test standing up. So my mental state was not at its peak. Neither was everyone else's, but I failed the test. And so, that's, BUD/S is very cutthroat in that there's a cut. I mean, we only, in the class I graduated in, there was like 16 guys out of 130. So it's a pretty heavy duty cut. And there's just no excuses, man. That you fail something, you're out. And I just remember, man, I was there. I ain't gonna lie, man. I was just there, just tears streaming down my whole life. I was the guy, I was like the kid from Kansas who grew up on a farm and had one drama class and wanted to go to Hollywood. Then went to Hollywood, and your first movie or whatever, you got shut down, or you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Or I went to go play pro baseball, and I got kicked off the team, and I had to go back to the traveling team or what have you. So it was devastating, man. I went to the ship, I went to the fleet, but really that in itself was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. In that. I had no gym there other than this like dungeon. It was a room way down in the ship that had a bench press and rusty dumbbells, but you couldn't bench press because if you're out at the sea, the waves or whatever. And it was a hot box, man. It was insanely hot. And I just got down there with a little my Walkman on and those rusty dumbbells and just went and did some insane PT, man. I was like Clubber Lang working out in the closet, doing pull-ups.
Yeah.
It was psycho stuff, man. But I had that in me. Like I was so pissed. I was so pissed at myself. I was like, how could you let that opportunity go by? And so there was a lot of fuel, man. There was a lot of rage. And I'm 20, I was beside myself. I just trained. Yeah. I got a stack of freaking books on like all these workbooks to how to do all these problems for math, for physics. And I came back, man, next version of myself. And, went through training again, didn't get no rollbacks, I went right through, passed the dive test, passed all that. I passed every test. And that was the thing before, the time before in Buzz, the first time, I passed every test up until that dive test.
That one.
It don't matter, man. One test, you fail, you're out. And so I knew this time, man, I had to be perfect. And so, really that put a lot of pressure on me at a certain level because you're kind of like, you had this 800-pound gorilla on your back that like you trying to make it through. So you're like you're overcautious. And, I tried not to do that. And I successfully made it through, but I know that there were a lot of moments where my anxiety was just like, boom, sky high, when it didn't have to be, because I was like, dude, you made it through this part before. Why are you freaking out? Like say I had to go back through dive phase again. And those tests, man, those instructors will rock your ass. I got water in my lungs, but I was like, fuck it, you got to fight through, man. You got this, And so, even though there was a lot of pressure that second time, I was able to find some level of calm. I had to make myself calm. It wasn't a matter about finding it. It was like, you got to find it or you're going to die.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of urgency to keep my head in the game and just really drill down. Because believe it or not, in that second class that I went through, there were athletes on their separate or candidates on their second time through. One who went through my class before, he got to his second Hell Week and he was like, no way. I'm not going through this Hell Week again. And we went through a winter class. It was cold, man. I mean, there was, and so, yeah, when you see a guy from your class that was from before go through Hell Week, halfway through, quit, you're like, whoa, that's like a dagger, man. You're like, damn, and then you're like, and I'm feeling like quitting because I'm all beat up, but then I'm like, no. And my swim buddy's chirping in my ear and I'm like, okay, man. Yeah. And so, it was hard, man. It was a hard process, but I wouldn't take it back for anything. In that, it just, it continued to hard forge with a flame that newer version of myself. And, it's
I love that you had the perspective at that age, at 20 years old, to not use that as an excuse of I'm not going to try again and make excuses around it, other than that fueled you to reapproach it and do it again. Because frankly, I think a lot of people, once they experience just a little bit of pain, their brain instantly goes to, how do I get away from this pain and never put myself in that scenario again? So I actually love that that's part of your story and your perspective around it now. Like, that made me better. That made me better the second round.
No, absolutely. And I've talked about this before with a lot of different people. Is like, think about it, man. I could have went back home and said, hey, man, I tried. I gave it my all. Didn't pan out. But I'm still serving in the Navy, and I'm going to get an honorable discharge. And my uncle served in the Navy, my great aunt, I'm going to serve. And so I could have said, and all this went through my head, oh man, instructors had it out for me. They hated me from day one. I'm this little scrawny guy, man. I never had a chance. You should have seen these dudes. They were 6'2". There was this one guy there, man. He was a letterman, blah, 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 all and on. No, man.
Would have
Because
been
I
an easy
knew
story.
inside. I knew you can't cheat yourself. You can tell somebody that, but in the end, it's like, that's not what I wanted. I don't want to go home and tell people I gave it my best shot and I'm going to serve out the rest of my years in the Navy and I'm going to keep my head high. I'm going to go to college. No. I'm there to finish the drill, man. Y'all kind of pissed me off a little bit here because now I know how to play that inner game. If I hadn't known how to play that inner game, then yeah. But once I got it, just that, like I was saying, that little bit of confidence of being able to play through Hell Week and all that, I'm like, hey, man, it's that old adage. Hey, those guys put their boots on, underwear, same damn way I do. Ain't nothing different. And I knew that in my heart, that I knew I could make it back through. Yeah. But I also knew, like, dude, this is going to suck, man. Remember Hell Week? You fucking crazy. You don't have to do this, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can't lie to yourself in the end, man. If you look in the mirror, you ain't going to be talking that junk. You look in the mirror, right. You're going to be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see so many people creating stories right now of justification already, almost accepting or like forecasting their own failure. And they're spending more time creating the story around why than fixing the problem. It's crazy to me. So let's jump forward. When did you launch Chiseled Grinder PT? Like, walk me through when you launched that, what the goal of it is. Cause I know that's a big passion project of yours now.
Yeah, I've just been doing Chiseled Grinder PT for 12, 13 years now, 2010. And it just really grew out of a passion that, I was working at a CrossFit gym. I was sweeping the floors, learning to become part-time, to become a CrossFit instructor. It was just down the road from my house. I loved the local community there. And I love fitness. I've always been around fitness. And so people knew that I had been in the Navy, what have you, and they're like, well, hey, what'd you do? What was this Navy SEAL workout that you did? Whatever. And so I started writing down workouts on a piece of paper, and I just put them on the bulletin board. And I noticed the pieces of paper were like, either people would make a copy of it or they were disappearing. And so I was like, somebody was talking about a blog, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just write it on the blog and then people can see it there. And then, and I wrote this blog. It was a daily workout, all it was. And, and I don't have a computer background. I don't have, I don't have any of that stuff. And this is, this is really about the start of Facebook, right in that zone. And so, I just started posting up, and then more and more people I noticed in the comments were like, well, people were asking all these questions. And so it really just started off as a blog, a simple blog. I mean, our website's still ugly, but it just served a purpose, right? Of getting information and sharing information. And so, from there, just started doing some reviews about gear. Started doing go to SealFit and train athletes there. Wrote some interviews with some different athletes there, and the website just started growing, started getting traffic, and more people were, hey, will you coach me for Kokoro? Will you coach me for 20X? Will you coach me for a Spartan race? And so it just grew out of that, and since then, I mean, it's just, if you would have told me coming out of college, like, you're going to have, that's going to be where you're going to end up, I would have never thought that. But I had a bet, just always loving fitness, always being around it. That it was just, it was a good passion that to fall into, and I ended up finding a way to to make a living with it and supporting my family, so
That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, I really love the community in there. A couple of things that really stick out to me is you look at the posts and the comments from the people in the community is that they're all walks of life, right? Different skill levels, all committed to self-betterment through particular on this platform in fitness, and the vulnerability of the community of what's working well for them, the challenges, the respect they have for you as the coach within the program. I love watching those comments in there. I mean, to me, there's so many Facebook groups or communities people can join, but what really fuels it is the culture of the people coming together, which I really love seeing that culture of what you've built is pretty cool. So in your mind, like who is the community built for? Like who are you attracting into Sil Grinder PT?
Yeah, I mean, earlier I talked about writing out of that, the blog and those basic workouts and all of that. And that's really where it started. And it's been really good for me as an athlete and a coach to really see Sil Grinder evolve into more than just workouts and and a lot of that came from just, working as a coach, you're always asking questions. And so, out of that, I just saw an incredible need for, and also working at SealFit, this is about more than the physical side and just the workouts. This is about the mental side also. And so, to answer your question is that, I see an athlete coming to Sil Grinder and benefiting in that they want more than just the workouts. They want to, they want that self-betterment. They want to find that better version of themselves. And that may be as simple as just finding the next good book to read, that's part of our accountability in that group is that it's not just the workout. It's, having the clean nutrition. It's reading something or a good podcast, putting something good in your mind. It's about, getting good quality sleep. It's about, building discipline, taking a cold shower. There's a lot of ways. You don't have to go out there and do Murph or do some big Hammerfest workout. And athletes saw that. They saw that that's what was going on from the start is that we were talking about clean nutrition, nothing exotic, just talking about eating clean. We're trading, hey, here's a good book I just got the other day, or man, you need to check out this audio, or here's a YouTube video that I think everyone can benefit from. And so it's really everyone got in that mode and started churning, just started posting, what they were doing. And there is that vulnerability side of it. We'll see people post up and they're like, hey man, I'm in a bad spot, or I, haven't been doing as well. And so it's a private group, but that, there is that vulnerability side of it where people are saying, hey, how do you deal with this? Or how do you deal with injuries? And so we're talking about a little bit bigger spectrum of, more than just the workouts. The workouts are important, but your workout can be that today I took a cold shower, I read for 5 minutes, did 5 minutes of deep breathing, and I walked out in the sunshine, and I took notes in my training journal. That nothing about the biceps and push-ups, all that's great. But when we build these other sides of ourselves, this mental and this physical and the spiritual, we start building that, we become, we're so much more of a better person, a complete person. We're trying to move towards that. We talk about 1% better, and you hear all the greats. They talk about that, right? I just listened to here in my hometown, the Florida State Seminoles just went college football program. I just went and listened to Coach Norvell speak here just the other day, and that's, he hit on that so many times. And that's nothing new. It's nothing novel. But you hear that repeatedly, time after time, from your elite athletes, your elite coaches, that they realize is that you're not going to change everything at that moment, but that incrementally over time, that you can have incredible change with your mind and body if you commit to that daily practice, or even let's just say 5 days a week, and you build that foundation, right? And so this is a concept that's been around for many years. I mean, since really the dawn of time, men and women trying to better themselves. The Greek philosophers, they and athletes, Greek athletes, they practiced, wrestling, marathon running, but at the same time, they learned from the great books. They went to listen to lectures of other scholars, right? And so, finding and building that in a community it's been powerful. It's been incredibly powerful. It's changed my life, and changed many other athletes' lives too, that are thankful for that process of being able to find a group where we have a plan, and we are accountable, and we support each other as swim buddies. All those things I've been talking about, all those blocks that I was been talking about all the way through with my swim buddy back in the past, with my goals back in the past. It's just a current manifestation of that, and it works.
Yeah. Well, the way you describe and talk about the community of it being this complete person is so in alignment with the focus of what we're building at the Whole Enchilada. That's why I've really been anxious for this conversation, because it's one thing about bringing people together with that intent of becoming a better version of them across multiple platforms. But what makes a successful community is having a you or a me that isn't just leading a community or pulling that group, but we're in it with them. Like, we want the same thing they do. We want to evolve. Mm-hmm. We want to become better. We want to be on that path with them. So I honor you for what you're building, and I think it's super exciting. So for us to wrap up our conversation today, I'm sure that our listeners just got a lot out of this conversation. I know I've got a page of notes here that I'm super excited about. How do they come find you? How do you prefer them to come follow you? Is it going to the website? Is it coming on your Facebook page? How do you want them to come see who you are?
Yeah, just Seal Grinder PT. Just type that into Google search, or type my name into Google search, Seal Grinder PT, and you'll land on the website. Our website is not the greatest, but at the same time, it's got a lot of really good content. And that's where we put our effort into. And so, from there, you'll see, you can go to the Facebook group. It is a private group, but we do accept, just make you ask you a couple little questions there. Make sure you're not a spam bot, and Facebook, whatever those, we get all these crazy people coming in the group, and all of a sudden they're trying to sell, whatever it is. And so, and that, that's essentially it. It's, we'd love to have, athletes come in the group, check us out, see what we're doing, see if it's right for you. If it's not, that's okay. It's not for everyone. But at the same time, those that are looking to better themselves, those that aren't afraid to take on a big, gnarly goal, those that have that little spark inside themselves. Maybe right now they're not even doing workouts, but they got a little spark, and they're like, man, I am just not satisfied with where I'm at currently, right? I said it before, I'll say it again. Mediocrity, it sucks. And you don't have to live a mediocre life, right? you can step up to that next level. You can in both your own personal health and you yourself getting out in the community. We stress that in our group is that, why are we doing all this, right? We're doing this, for me, it's for my family, it's for my community, right? For people I love. And so, that's where we see ourselves as our better selves, is that, if we can stay strong through COVID, we can stay strong through, we see chaos, around us, or strife around the world. I may not can control what a Russian fighter jet's shooting down a drone over here or what Putin's doing in Ukraine, but I know I can control myself, and I know that I can stay strong and healthy all the way through COVID, and I can be a good leader for my family. And so I think, those athletes that do come through and taking a look at what we're doing, those are things that if those resonate with you, then that's you're at home there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, and just really look up to what you're doing there. And I think you gave me a lot of really great quotes and nuggets here. I think the one you just said, mediocrity sucks, is now going to be the title of this podcast episode, because I think that really resonates with what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Say it boldly and know it.
Yeah.
And
amen.
Call yourself out when you are being mediocre. Be your own best coach with your swim buddy chirping in your ear saying, hey man, you can do better than this. And you'll find the 1% start coming in. And it may be 1% a month.
Yeah, that's right.
And maybe 1% a week. Boom, it'll go.
All right, Enchilada Nation, thank you guys for plugging in this week. Really excited about this. I hope you picked up as much as I did from this conversation. A couple key things that I want you to take away that stuck out for me is, number one, is we're all faced with a giant, that big chiseled warrior that we're comparing ourselves to. Don't compare you to them. Compare your why against them. Really lean into who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. I love that Brad talked a lot about the importance of a great swim buddy. Remember, a swim buddy is on both sides of it. Sometimes you're leaning on your swim buddy to pull you through, who is helping you and picking you up right now. But don't forget, you're someone else's swim buddy too. So you got to show up at your best self every single day, because someone's counting on you to be the best version of them. And the last thing here is mediocrity sucks. Let's not be mediocre. Let's be the complete version of us. And don't forget, my friends, go live life on your terms. Thanks so much, Brad.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.